What's going on, guys? Welcome to a special video. I get asked so often what currently is or was the best survival game ever created. And today I'm hopefully going to set out to pretty much answer that question with the ultimate 80 survival game tier list. Today, the day I'm recording this at least, marks 10 years since creating this channel. And I have been playing survival games for longer than that, but making content on survival games for an entire decade now. So there's some throwbacks in here. There's some love-hate. There's a lot of sass about to be coming out. Just so you know, this is my opinion on the game, and a lot of my opinion on the game also is swayed by media at the time, meaning, was it successful on my channel? Did my friends enjoy it? Did I meet friends through it? Was the experience what I expected? Not wholeheartedly based on the gameplay, because you know a good environment with a good group of friends can make a game great no matter how bad the game is. If you guys are just joining us, which I don't know who is at this point, you guys have just been here forever, right? Hit the sub button, notification icon, make sure it's set to always. And if at any point in time you're like, oh, I'm curious about that game, literally Google the name of the game and PartiallyRoyal, and there will be a full series on it, or at least 4 or 5 episodes, so you can check it out and then make your decision on if you want to purchase it or not. Before we get deeper into this tier list video, I'd like to shout out today's sponsor, G2A.com. G2A.com is a place where you get extremely discounted prices on some of the newest and even the oldest games, some of your favorites. Definitely go check it out. And right now they are doing a sale on a lot of apocalyptic games, which is extremely fitting for this tier list. Last of Us Part 1, 31% off. Resident Evil 4 Remake, 27% off. A bunch of your other favorites like Project Zomboid, Days Gone, DayZ, Back 4 Blood. Anything and everything you're looking for is probably on G2A.com. You can even get gift cards as gifts on sale and get random keys and just try to find some new games that you probably wouldn't even bat an eye at. There's a lot for you to do here. Definitely give it a check out in the links down below and see if there's something on there. And right now they even have a competition where you can win some prizes by doing some AI generated art of your favorite apocalyptic type of scenarios or environments or things like that. So pretty crazy. Lots going on over there. Again, the link is down below. And now let's get back into the tier list. So they're in no particular order. This is going to be very long form and somewhat informative, but also a little chaotic. We don't have an F tier, but that's because there's so many games I literally couldn't fit it. The F tier is just going to be what I leave down at the bottom with the rest of the games. So just keep that in mind. S is obviously the best. These games are like, go buy them right now. I'm surprised you haven't played them yet. A is like, you know, I kind of recommend them. There's some things where they stutter stepped and, you know, they should have took a left when they took a right type thing. But it's still a great game. B, I'm going to say, is an average game. You know, I don't really have a positive or a negative to speak on it. It's just kind of one of those middle games. C is where I'm like, this game stinks. I don't really know what else to say. D tier is like wasteland garbage goo survival, and then F is like, don't even Google it. Like, there's no point. Trust me, you're not gonna like it. But that's, again, based on my opinion. Some people are gonna be a little pissed off, and I want you to be. Give me your opinions on some of the choices that I choose down below in the comment section. So again, these aren't in a particular order. I'm just gonna start. I'm literally built this on Photoshop, so you're gonna see little movements. That's not what I want to do. Just throw it all right in D tier, because survival games are dead. Omega lol. Okay, so we're starting with Jaws of Extinction. So I actually was like on call with the devs in this game and like helped them with development. It's very early, so like I don't want to like throw it right into D tier, but at the current game state, it is C tier. It just is. It needs some work, but that's what they're doing. They're working, so I can't really hate on it. Last Oasis, I honestly slapping it right here. Gameplay wise, like the whole like Sandwalker thing and being in the desert was super cool, but some early development mistakes with server providers and not being able to do private servers, and then like the massive 190 person tribes that were literally taking over official servers kind of ruined the game without having private servers. So that's why it's an average game. This is something that I would like to revisit in the future, possibly when it gets a little bit deeper into development, because it looks like it could be a really, really fun PvP survival game, especially like the host for you guys. Oh, Life is Feudal. Life is Feudal is just for me. I know a lot of people liked this game. It's just kind of boring. It is so grindy. It's one of those games where I talk about it's like grindy for the sake of grindy. This will be one of those games you only see me do one episode on just to test the waters, and I just absolutely didn't like it. And we have our first just kidding, it's an A tier. I'm going to get hate for this. This game is phenomenal. It has everything you want in a survival game, especially a zombie survival game. Absolutely just a delectable game. But it's top down. If this was a first or a third person game, I mean, we'd have an S+ tier for it. But it's still just minorly janky combat is what keeps me away from it most of the time, but I think we're still going to give it a very solid try here in the future. Medieval Dynasty is going down again for me, the D tier, just a snooze fest, boring, just lacking life. Mainly, I think you're going to see a bit of a correlation between single-player games and multiplayer games. Multiplayer games are generally going to sit higher. Single-player games are generally going to sit lower. But that's just because I don't like a game where you have to make your own fun or, you know, just be goofy to make some nice content. I just like it when it flows naturally and everybody's having a good time, and this game just isn't one of them. Minecraft, I mean, I have to. The first video I ever made on this channel, on my other channels, was Minecraft. I so wholeheartedly, every single year, go back to Minecraft for at least a week. It's consistently updating. So many mods. You can do whatever you want with it. I mean, if I didn't put Minecraft in S tier, this would be an irrelevant tier list video. Mist Survival. So this is going into the B tier. It's just kind of like an okay game. It's nothing that you haven't seen before. You know, it's just kind of there. That's how I put it. It's pretty fun, but like I think other games are gonna kind of develop past it very quickly, like you see with No One Survived. Myth of Empires, honestly, for its mechanics and its gameplay and everything. But the problem, God, I wish I had a middle tier for this one, but I think it's got to go C just because you literally can't play it anymore. They got copyright striked or DMCA'd or something, I believe from actually Arc themselves, because they were copying code or something of that nature. You can check out the drama, but for what it was, like, I think if the game kept going and continued to be developed, it would be a very B or A tier game easily. No Man's Sky. So this is kind of where we hit the is it a survival game wall type thing, but it still kind of had the hype of a survival game, an exploration game, crafting, shooting, exploring, you know, everything a survival game kind of has. You know, we don't obviously have to like eat or drink or anything like that, but there's base building, that type of thing. And overall, if you're playing from the beginning, if you've never played No Man's Sky, it's an A tier game, like it just is. But when I think about it as a survival game, it's more of a B tier. But I'm going to keep it an A because it is beautiful. It is fun. There's massive amounts of customization, consistent updates. And I'm just a bit of a space geek, so it was fun. I highly recommend it. These aren't going to stay even by any means of the word. And Osiris New Dawn is another C tier game. It just felt clunky. FPS was horrible. But the concept of actually having a decent like solar survival game, it really hasn't been done. And they got so close, but they just missed a little bit. It just felt a little lackluster. I haven't checked it out recently, though, so maybe we'll have to do that. Population 0 right in the... Yep. Actually, we're just going to go down here. This is going to remain in the F tier. Absolutely just a development nightmare. So many issues off the bat. It seemed like it was going to be like a good base building, survival, MMO, open world, Arc style thing, and then it just fizzled out. It just was nothing, and it just was extremely mediocre and lackluster. So that's going to be in the F tier. The reason why Life is Feudal and Medieval Dynasty are in D tier is because I know people will like these games and do like the games, and the mechanics weren't particularly bad. They were just kind of boring. Rafts, you know? Alone, I'd say B tier. As with a group, I have to put it in A. I mean, we've been playing this game for years, and the story is pretty cool and original, like a Waterworld raft style survival game. So in terms of everything on the list, I think it happily sits in A tier, like really does. And I think most of my friends would also agree with that. And into the F tier, another development nightmare. I don't know if you guys were around in the survival scene when Rend was coming to popularity. But it really was a ton of promises that never happened, and a whole bunch of development nightmares with, I believe, like they were talking about paid DLC already when like things were barely working as is. I think we played it for like 2 or 3 days. It seemed like the concepts were fun, but they just never came to fruition. Like it just, again, fizzled out. There's really nothing there. Fortnite Save the World. We're not taking into consideration the Battle Royale. We're putting it in B tier. I would recommend, I don't even know if they're still doing it. Like, do they still update this? Let me know down below. But it's just fun. And if Fortnite Battle Royale never got popular, I think this still would have been an extreme success for Epic Games. Like, hands down. Like, it was really fun. Sons of the Forest. I know, here we go. Here comes the hot takes. I'm sorry, man. It's kind of a C tier game. The survival elements of the game are awesome, and if the release schedule of updates was better, not by timeline, but by content contained within the updates, it could easily be a B or even an A tier game. I love the building. I love most of the combat, but it really fell short on giving us the end of the story before the rest of the story. Like, why? Why did they do that? I don't know. There's still no traps in the game. They're just adding bosses now, and the bosses are just reskinned versions or even larger versions of enemies that are already in the game. It just seems like that was in development hell for so long, and it still just came out lackluster, like truly lackluster. I would, if there was a tier, sit it in between, but I think it leans more towards C tier, unfortunately. I know, here comes the haters, but it doesn't. I think maybe some will agree with me, though. Bada bing, bada boom. The Infected. I know there's no text on this one. I'm just putting it in D tier. This just felt like an asset flip, boring kind of whatever game. No doubt that you could still have a bit of fun with it if you were to install it. Like, no doubt. But honestly, in the scheme of all of these games, meh. You know, meh. And like, I know this is going to happen so often in this tier list video. I'm like looking at it as like, do Sons of the Forest really sit with Osiris New Dawn and Myth of Empires and Jaws of Extinction? Okay. Yeah. 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 It's a B. It's a B. We're going to run that one back. We're going to try to avoid running it back too often. But yeah, I got to look at the games next to it. It's more of a B tier for sure. Void Train, it's fun. An original concept, somewhat enjoyable. It's a copy of Raft, which is a gameplay loop that we really enjoy. It's in early access, which scares me, which is why I'm going to hover between B and C. I think it's going to sit in C right now. Just sitting next to these games, this feels a little less developed, but I do not doubt that this, with just a couple updates and on release, will be in a B tier, maybe even an A tier game, depending on how crazy they go with the story. Valheim, also a B tier game. I think it's an excellent game. The environment is beautiful. It's really, really fun with friends. It doesn't view great, which definitely influences my decision a bit. I mean, Raft viewed just as well as it, and it's still, you know, in a different tier. It just, I don't know why it feels lacking. I like the building, but the combat is pretty one-dimensional. There's a lot of just like knockback and like flimsy movements, and you can't really get like super proficient at the combat. And you'll see combat influences a lot of the decisions in a lot of these games that I'm going to be ranking. And it's just like, I highly recommend it, but like, you know, I would prefer to play these ones. Survive the Nights into the D tier. I think you could actually go back and play this game and have fun. I think we did about 5 years after its release, and we did have a pretty enjoyable experience. We lost some items, there were some bugs, some glitches, some problems. But ultimately, like, it's an all right game. These two are literally dead. That's why they're in F tier. But overall, I think that's where it belongs. Okay, I snuck an F tier in there somehow, but we got it. It's going to be a little tight. There's just, I mean, 80 survival games doesn't even fit on a large 1080p thing. It's just impossible without you guys not being able to see the images. But we got the F tier now. We're good to go. We're getting into a pretty hot zone here, as you can tell. 7 Days to Die. Just, I think gameplay-wise, where it sits with most survival games nowadays is a B tier game. A B tier game. As for just, development cycle kind of being the first of its kind, how fun it's been, the viewership over the years, how much you guys enjoy every update, and my friends do as well, this is an A tier game no matter what. It is far from an S tier, but it's definitely an A tier game. I think 10 years ago, literally, I think it came out 10 years ago, it would have been an S tier game, but it has just kind of fallen off a bit. I don't know what they're going to do to revive it. Probably the console release, which they keep teasing, but who knows when that's going to happen. And another guy jumping in here, A tier. I think Rust is closer to an A tier game or an S tier game than 7 Days to Die is. I'd say if we're going to order these actually by how close they are to S tier, we're going to look at something like this. Because Rust is an amazing game. It has the best development team in survival games, in PvP games, in building games, in everything, just in environment, in lore, in everything. It's just a super awesome game. But the hacking problems, the stream sniping problems, the toxic community definitely drops it down a tier. Not to say that any of these games don't have that as well. It's just more known for that. So that's why it's going to sit in A tier. You're not going to see too many S tiers from me. It's very hard to get an S tier, but there are certain games that definitely get up there. Tribes of Midgard. It's fun. It's kind of that top-down vibe that I'm not a huge fan of. We're just going to throw it here in C tier. I think it would probably, if anything, I'm going to rotate these in popularity, like I said before, to try my best here. We're going to go down here. What's kind of wild is I still think Myth of Empires is in C tier, and it's in a development nightmare because they literally can't even publish their game anymore. But the actual systems in place for city building in a medieval environment was done so well in Myth of Empires that if somebody just took this IP and developed their own game without stealing code from someone, it could be pretty high up here if done correctly. It just hasn't been done before. I think Life is Feudal tried to do that, and I think Myth of Empires is a more dumbed down, easier to maintain version of Life is Feudal, to be fair. The Long Dark, I think we're just going to go with a C tier. I think it's just a truly excellent game. I think I would do something like this if we're going to rate them in terms of C tier games. It's single player. It's kind of just old and, like I said, outdated. I haven't played any of the story stuff because it really just didn't interest me when it released. But in terms of just pure survival, if you're just a solo survivalist and you just want to live in the forest, in the snow, this is a great one. But honestly, I find myself wanting to take a nap after about an hour of playing it. And another in C tier, we're putting Among Trees. Pretty much exactly what I said about The Long Dark, except it's super pretty. That's really all it has going for it. I mean, it's, again, another single player kind of, I style it as like an ASMR style of survival game, meaning like if you just like the raw, just like cooking and like building up a little house and exploring around and that type of thing, it's real nice. But like, it's nothing to write home about. I wouldn't like highly recommend it unless that's your forte, but it's a pretty decent game. And into the D tier Ancestors. I know some people would disagree with this, but there was just a severe lack of any UI whatsoever, which was their artistic vision or something, and maybe they did updates in the future that fixed that. But the whole process of this game was just an abhorrent nightmare. Again, felt like I needed to take a nap after an hour of playing it just from the amount of brain power I had to use to return to Monkey, if you will. Just really, it was like, like I wouldn't go back and play this and I wouldn't recommend it. Astroneer kind of sits, I think it's a pretty decent B tier option. I think it sits pretty much in the middle. Not really a survival game, kind of fits in with like among trees, things like that. Very pretty. If you just kind of like the exploration and that type of thing, there's not like any combat in the game. There's nothing to really draw you back unless you like exploring and like that, going into space type vibe. Haven't played too many of the recent updates. Every time I go back again, feels like I need to take a nap after an hour. It's just kind of a snooze fest. Still a great game, like I said. C tier is like a list. C tier is like a just not for me, but could be B tier list, except for a handful in here. Subnautica Below Zero, I'm going to put it into the B tier. The story was amazing. The building was amazing. I liked the environment. It's really one of its kind, just like Subnautica 1, which we're just going to put right next to it right now. I know, sorry about your OCD. There's going to be a square there for now. Just great games. Not above average, like nothing to write home about, mainly because they're single player. I'm telling you right now, if the third Subnautica, if they ever plan on releasing that, if it has multiplayer, it will be an A or an S tier game, hands down. If I can do what I did in Subnautica Below Zero, but with my pals, I mean, that's like a top 10, easily. And I think everybody thinks that. Breakwaters, this is very early in development. I don't really know. I did like 4 hours on it. It seems all right. We'll see. That's really all I have to say about that. Breath Edge, again, kind of one of those single-player survival-ish games. It has a bit of its own like British humor to it. It's really fun. Again, I would just recommend it if you kind of would prefer The Long Dark or Among Trees or Astroneer. You would definitely like Breath Edge. Volcanoids, I mean, man, I really like the development squad. They go like viral on TikTok like once a week. It's pretty crazy. But as the game sits right now, it's a bit C tier. It just kind of feels a little too like disorganized. I don't know what they're trying to do. I think they're still working on baseline systems. I no doubt this could be a B or an A tier game in the future, but as it stands right now, it's just kind of a middle of the pack, but a little less than. I mean, it's very hard to get into my B, A, and S tier, as you can tell. So you have to be up there, and it just falls flat slightly. Reign of Kings, I know this is going to get a lot of side-eye question marks. What the heck? You put that there, you put this here. The amount of fun in such a short period of time, barely anything ever comes close to Reign of Kings. Hands down. This game is just so original, so hilarious. The amount of great content in such a short period of time. Yeah, it went into development hell. Yes, they released the worst game ever called Heat. I didn't even put it on the list because it would just get in the dumpster instantaneously, and I don't even want to give it the shine of light. That's how horrible that game was. But Reign of Kings overall, wow. I just think back, man. That is a series that I highly recommend you look up on my channel if you're new around here. Card Life, just going to go into D tier. Cool concept, but it's like, cool concept only carries you so far. It just kind of like fell flat, very basic survival game, but you can like cardboard cut out your sword and stuff. Scrap Mechanic Survival, it was a laggy nightmare, but the bones of it were pretty good. I don't know if it's even being developed anymore. I haven't heard really anything on it, but the themes and the way that this game worked and the way you would custom build your cars was extremely fun. If it wasn't super laggy and if we didn't literally lose our save to walking into an elevator, you can look it up. That was a common problem. People were losing their saves after walking in an elevator. I got to put it in C tier. Easily a B tier if that never happened, but as of right now, it is a C tier in my mind. State of Decay, I'm going to throw it up into the B tier. It's a solid game. Like, it's really solid, just kind of, it's just solid. I like it. I like the environment. I'm glad that there's some. I mean, it kind of feels AAA without being AAA. It's just a really good settlement development survival game in the zombie apocalypse. I cannot wait for the third game. So I think it happily sits amongst this group easily. Although early and we just started playing it, no one survived. The series is still moving and grooving. I think it sits happily in the B tier at its current state. I think in a year or two, this is going to happen right here. I'm going to do it right now. That's going to end up happening. I think this could be the next 7 Days to Die if things go correctly. As of right now, I think it sits happily in B tier for sure. We Happy Few. This just fell flat for me. This is one that I would like to go back and check out. Maybe the development went through. It seems like a very heavily story-focused survival, but the gameplay I was playing in early access when it first came out just felt like I didn't know what to do. I was just kind of running around doing whatever, and I don't particularly remember there being any base building, which left me just kind of being like, what do I do? This was just kind of okay. So that's why I think it kind of sits down here. It's just kind of not for me, and I'm not sure it was really for anybody. Unturned. I'm going to have to go up with A tier on Unturned, man. I mean, the Royal and Vuxy Chronicles, me and Star, I mean, that was just a different world. That was like so, it feels so long ago, and it was so long ago. This game is still like a top 10 played game on Steam, by the way, in case you didn't know. Consistently getting updates, and if you would like a Unturned return, leave a like. The Forest, again, we're going up into an A tier. Easily could be an S tier if they just, developed the Forest with Sons of the Forest things, just expanded the story, released the DLC. I think Sons of the Forest actually would have probably seen more success through that instead of a completely different title. But as it sits, The Forest was an excellent game. It was the first introduction into that environment, that lore, that story, and how we were all confused and also not. Sons of the Forest, again, just fell flat compared to the first one for me. But I think it easily sits among these games. Eco, I'm going to put it in B tier for sure. I think it has a ton of fun, a great potential for a community building game. Obviously, I had an extremely viral series on Eco as well. Not really a survival game, but like it kind of is because you have to survive the world. Like you got to literally not pollute it and make sure you're creating a functioning society. But I think it's just a little kind of boring. Like the content and the overarching theme and what happens over time is super awesome. But the actual content and gameplay itself is lackluster. But it has to be in B tier just because of the concept and the amount of fun we had with it on that first community series. Conan Exiles, I mean, like, I really want to put it in C tier just because there is a lot of content. It is an okay game. The combat for me is really what kills it. Just going into like the dungeons really felt extremely cheesy. The combat, again, is 90% of the game when it comes to survival games for me, and it really was just kind of meh. Every time I go back, it feels meh. And that's why for me, sits in C tier. I think this could sit in B tier and definitely hold its own against these titles. But for me, it's more down here with just kind of, I don't know. They're okay. It's an okay game. Craftopia, we're going to throw that down in F tier. That just felt like a bit of a cash grab. So many bones and no bones at the same time. It's kind of like one of those things where it's like you need to just choose a lane, don't choose all of them, or you're just going to get like a cesspool of fart, and that's kind of what Craftopia was. Don't buy this. Terraria, easily S tier for a lot of people. I think it could easily sit above Rust or Raft or really high up here for me. But, I really enjoy this game. Highly recommend it. If you haven't played it before, I don't know what you're doing. Go play it. Pretty much S and A tier. Go buy these. Go try these. These are excellent games. B is for like, I might, dabble in some deeper survival games, things that, not the mainstream crazy people would definitely play. C is where it's like, okay, you want to dip your toes into some cesspool of survival, but like there's still some gems in here with Astroneer. But Terraria, easily an S tier game for a lot of people, A tier just for me because I've never really like played through the whole game, but every time I go back, I have a fun time. It kind of sits with Minecraft, where I go back like 1 week out of every year and always have an enjoyable experience building my little base and things like that. So Don't Starve, great game. I think it sits in B tier. Don't Starve Together really gives it a boost. Obviously, surviving with your friends is extremely fun. This game just kind of low-key stresses me out. I don't know why. It feels like you can never really have fun. There's no fun in between the survival, if that makes sense. And it all just feels like you're straight up surviving, which is for some people. It's just not fully for me. But it definitely gameplay-wise sits amongst these. I think if I were to take all of these games, I would choose Don't Starve as one of them that I would play for sure. Larkin Light going into the F tier, just development nightmare, kind of an Ark clone that never came to fruition. I would not go back and play this. I don't know if they're developing it anymore, but it's just kind of poop. DayZ, I know. This is gonna get some hate, but man, there is no other game that does it like DayZ does. I'm still playing DayZ to this day. It's one of my top played hours game on Steam. Mods alone, you can get hundreds and hundreds of hours out of the game, not even considering the vanilla. I love PvP. I love hardcore survival. I absolutely love the crafting mechanics in this game and just everything about it and the environment. I still, to this day, when I get in a gunfight, my heart starts racing. Nothing matches it. Really, it doesn't. Deadside, kind of a DayZ clone. Definitely not D tier. It doesn't sit with these guys. I think if anything, for me, it's kind of a C tier. It's one of those, like, if you just want to play DayZ for the shooting, just go play Deadside. It's just the DayZ shooting without all the survival. It's pretty okay. I wouldn't, like, highly recommend it, but I wouldn't say it's a bad game. It's all right. Desolate, again, we're going to see a lot of C tiers here. We might even need to boost the C tier list. Because there's going to be a lot of them. Survival games have a lot of those like middle ground mediocre games. This, I think, would be top towards C tier. I'm just not going to keep moving everything around. I think it's sitting in between B and C a little bit. I think if you go back with a group of friends, you could have a couple of spooks and scares and a fun time with this game, for sure. Combat was just a little lackluster. Story was all right. And yeah, that's all I got to say about it. Drake Hollow, kind of exactly what I said with Desolate. You could probably go back, have like 10 hours of gameplay and fun with some friends. The mechanics are pretty cool, base defense and things like that. I just don't think it's like kind of in the same realm as these games, but again, it would be kind of between B and C, and semi-popular on YouTube. So, like one of those. Dread Hunger. Man, there's nothing like it, but the development of the game has gone downhill, it feels like. They're kind of just aiming in some weird direction of keeping the current players happy, but not drawing in new people. As for its concepts and the way the game plays, it is extremely fun. Really, they only need 2 or 3 very specific changes to make this game a permanent on a lot of people's radars, like Project Winter, which I forgot to put on this list. But Dread Hunger and Project Winter, both kind of very similar games, so they would be sitting right next to each other in B tier. If you haven't played this before and you have a group of friends, you're going to have a fun time. I think this sits in between the B and C tier. It just leans a bit more towards B tier. If you are a developer on Dread Hunger, reach out to your boy. I mean, we can make this the next Among Us in the survival game realm with just a couple of simple changes, man. Like, God, I want it to be an A tier so bad, but it doesn't do it yet. It's not there. Dying Light 2. God, this is another one where it's like B and C are going to be so interchangeable. but like, does it sit with Sons of the Forest and Valheim and Subnautica and Don't Starve and Eco and State of Decay? Man, God, this is probably one of the harder ones. It was a great game, but like I think I gave it like a 5.6 out of 10 or something like that, which kind of puts it here. Like if I could do this, this would be one of those games where like I feel like I have to. So, but I think just in the scheme of things, like, you know, it got real boring real quick, you know? I just kind of couldn't wait for the end of the game, which kind of sucks. But I think it's a hard one, man. It's a hard one. Earthfall, just kind of like one of those Left 4 Dead clones. I think you could probably go back and have fun with this, just kind of murdering stuff. Not really a survival game, but like kind of is just survive to the end type thing. Like if Left 4 Dead was on this list or something like that. This is specifically on this list because I did an episode on it with actually Slipgator the first time ever I played with him, and the last time because he's pretty much not doing YouTube anymore. But it was a fun one. It was like a kind of a collaboration clash. It was weird because like our humor and everything really didn't match up and things like that, which happens. Like collaborations over the years have always gone that way. But it was still like really fun to actually like talk before and after and just like poke each other's brains because we've been in the same genre for so long. So that's a throwback that I highly recommend you go watch. So yeah, just kind of a D tier. It's an alright game. Scum doesn't belong in B, definitely a C, kind of sits down here. Like I wouldn't highly recommend it, but I wouldn't doubt if you're going to have fun with it. Just kind of moved away from being that hardcore DayZ type of survival game and kind of moved more towards the dead side of things. I know some people will be like, you really should revisit it again, but every time I do, it's just kind of the same thing. Just like a bunch of people skirting around in really fast, weird cars and just like not actually surviving. You know what I mean? That's where DayZ really has a lot of these games beat out, is the actual survival elements of the game. But yeah, kind of a C tier game for me. Stranded Deep, I know this might get a bit of backlash, and I think a bit of this kind of just comes from our recent playthrough with Christian. Me and him had a blast. It was just really fun, just exploring with the pals, facing the different bosses. The whole mechanics of the game are just really excellently done. A lot of wandering, but also kind of just enjoyment of building your raft and also building your base on an island. I would highly recommend this. Like, if you haven't played Stranded Deep all the way through yet, or if you haven't watched my series, go do that. It's a lot of fun. It really is. Subsistence. God, I want to put it in C tier, but it's going D for me. It just feels so forced. The AI is not good. I haven't played it in a bit, but I don't really want to. It just feels like kind of one of those forced content games. I'm always surprised that so many content creators could actually bear that game. Obviously, it's just not for me, but it definitely sits happily in D tier for me. Bada bing, bada boom, Vigor. I think this would be in C tier if I had space. No, I'm just kidding. It's definitely going to go into the B tier. I know that's a bit odd because you probably are like, what the hell is this game? But as far as console survival looter shooters go, this is the one. Like I did sponsored stuff on this, and I spoke from heart that it is a very good game for console. Like if I had only a console and then out of all of these options, I would probably pick up Vigor. Like DayZ on consoles, kind of like bleh. Minecraft on console, okay, sure, that beats it out. But I would pick up Vigor if you own, I believe it's on Xbox. The Isle, in its current state, I think it's a B. But I think no doubt with its concepts and the way that the game plays, even today, I still go back and have like a pretty fun time just waiting to see more. Conceptually, and the way that this game plays and how awesome it's going to be, like it's feels like it's in a bit of development hell, but they're still developing it. Like, they're still releasing pieces of it. And no doubt that this game will and still is and currently is an A tier game. This is one of those in-betweens for sure that leans more towards the B for me, though. It is so close to being an A tier game. It's going to be Dinosaur DayZ. I'm excited. Surrounded. This is kind of like one of those quick develop, copy, flip type games. I think it is pretty fun. And I think I'm going to put it in C tier, but I just need to organize real quick. Another C tier game, Beep Boop. Again, this is the average line. This is above average, below average, and then worse. So these are just kind of below average games for me. And these are above average games, and then obviously better and better as we go up. That's the kind of the way you need to look at this. F is complete failure, obviously. Escape from Tarkov, not really a survival game, but still among all of these games deserves to be on the list and is an S tier. This leans more towards A for me. I don't think it's better than DayZ or Minecraft, but you cannot put this game's name down. Nothing beats the combat, gunplay, customization, and questing systems of this game. It is just beautiful. It is so much fun. Nothing beats this in any of the other genres of looter shooter or anything like that in any way, shape, or form, and this will contain and continue to be an S tier game for a very, very long time. Nothing is going to dethrone this. Fade to Silence, just kind of a D tier. Like the name, the game just kind of faded to silence. You guys probably don't even really remember this game. I did a sponsored post on it, and it was really good. Like, which is odd to put it in D tier, right? It was really good, but it was one of those games where I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Something just, like, was off. Like, it just wasn't that fun. Kind of like the rest of the games down here. Fallout. So pretty much in particular from my channel, Fallout 4 is the series I did. So we're going to build this off of Fallout 4. And if we're going to give it all of the Fallouts in general and where it sits among all of these games, obviously Fallout is an A tier game. No doubt if Fallout 4 wasn't kind of the mess that it was, that most Fallout fans agree, and Fallout 76, which really drags the name down a bit, it would be an S tier. I'm hoping that the next Fallout game brings us back to S tier and gives us everything we wanted, like from New Vegas and Fallout 3. It could be an S tier, but I think a lot of even Fallout fans would agree with this A tier assumption. Frozen Flame, I wouldn't put it above average. I'd put it kind of down here with these guys. Below average right now, early access. It's kind of like, we'll see what happens with it. Definitely extremely fun. I think if I played it with friends, it would probably be a B tier game. And we're going to be revisiting this very soon, so we might bump it up depending on the content schedule and how the friends like it as well. Generation Zero, I'm going to put it above average. Nothing fits this kind of apocalyptic Poland robot survival scenario. No doubt this could be an A tier game if there was a bit more guidance on what to do. A lot of this is kind of a make your own fun, explore, shoot stuff type of game. There's nothing that's like wow to write home about, but it's just really like get immersed into this environment with your friends and it's going to be fun. Green Hell, again, going to be in the B tier, above average. It's nothing like in the A tier. Like, I wouldn't put it up here where I would consistently always go back to it, mainly just because the story felt not forced, but like predictable, I guess. Like, I kind of anticipated what was going to happen and it was a bit confusing at first. And the gameplay loop is a bit kind of repetitive, but the building is great. And there's nothing that really matches that Amazonian survival and kind of the elements that you face, like with the random lion attacks and getting bit by a spider for the 49th time and all of the different medical treatments that you need to know and learn. I think it just happily sits above average. Grounded, it's a great game. It really, really is a great game. Like, everything in me wants to put it as an A tier game. I think for a lot of people, this could get bumped down to B tier. I think very easily. I think it doesn't really sit well next to these titles over here, but the story was cute. Me and my friends had a ton of fun. There was clear progression of gear. And I really like a survival game with a purpose, a beginning and an end. So that's why I feel like it doesn't really sit down here with these guys very much. I think it sits a little higher. If anything, I'd put it maybe top of B, but bottom A, if that makes sense. This is gonna get me, like, people are gonna be mad about that one. GTFO, not really a survival game, kind of one of those Left 4 Dead style shooters. I think in terms of gameplay and how it plays and how much fun you could have with it, it would be a B tier. Just among these games in B tier, for me, it is a C tier game. I'm not saying it's a below average game. I just think it sits below the average on the games on this list. I still would highly recommend checking out GTFO if you want a very hardcore stealth survival, very team focused gameplay scenarios. Highly recommend. H1Z1. Oh my god. So obviously F tier for development. We're talking the Just Survive crowd, by the way. If we're including the Battle Royale, obviously it's going to give it a bit more score. Just for nostalgia, viewership, how much fun and how much growth we had in the survival genre because of this game. It was on the forefront of zombie horde survival games for sure. And PvP. This game was epic. It was just so much fun. I really wish it didn't go the way it went, and would easily sit happily in S tier with these guys given the chance. Ark into the S tier. I mean, people will sit here and hate on Ark all day. It's one I always see a Reddit post like, "What game do you have 10,000 hours in, but you absolutely despise?" Ark. Like, that is just one of those games. There's just so much love for that first playthrough of Ark. If all we had was the first playthrough, this would be an S+ game. Obviously, like, the direction towards tech was a little weird in the survival genre. The story was odd. The bosses were overpowered. Like, there was some development issues, but you cannot deny or solidify Ark. Like, it doesn't sit with these games. It's definitely among the Minecraft, Tarkovs, and DayZs. There's no doubt in my mind. Hurt World, bit of a development hell. I wouldn't go back and say buy this game because it is heavily PvP focused and there's probably nobody playing it. Just kind of a Rust clone that never really could catch up. One of those things, so just kind of goes down here. Icarus, man, it's a pretty game. I like the systems in place. The roguelike survival elements are fun. This, for me, just based on the last series, I would put this in C tier, but from our first playthrough, it was a ton of fun. It's going in B tier. It has to. Luckily, we're cutting off Icarus a little bit, and we're coming towards the end of our video. Hopefully, you guys have enjoyed this little experience with me. It's been fun to kind of jump back and think about all of these different series as they've gone on. Salt goes into C tier, just kind of a C tier game. Windbound, played in early access, C tier. Forager, really fun alone, but I mean, ultimately kind of feels like a mobile game, C tier. Atlas, really just kind of, for me, sits in C tier. I think this kind of jumps into B tier for a lot of people. It just, like, why play this when you have Ark? You know, kind of that feel. Just kind of felt like a bit of like a quick cash grab type of thing. Not to mention, like, I'm not doubting any of the development team or them working on it still and making an excellent game, but it just, I just don't. The time could be spent elsewhere. You know what I mean? So we're gonna put that in C tier. And the Stomping Land, for, I mean, the OGs out there. Man, this game was so much fun, and we were all looking forward to this game in the survival scene so heavily for so many years. But it fell flat, obviously. But it's not F. It had its moment. It definitely did. So obviously, I'm probably forgetting something on this list, but ultimately, this is pretty much the list. I feel like if I were to go back and do this again, it would be completely different. But ultimately, I think S and A tier, go play these games. Go right now. Drop what you're doing. Go buy these games and play them. B tier, if you're like a survival boy at heart, and you love survival games, you will no doubt have fun in the B tier. If you're really just have played all of S, A, and B tier and you need that next one, C tier is for you. If you really just want to have a weird time, a throwback, like why the hell am I playing this, D tier. If you really just want to throw money into the bottomless pit void that is people's pockets, F tier is for you. There is some games, obviously, we played a lot of like the worst survival games on Steam. You know, they didn't really solidify themselves as a full series on my channel. And there's definitely some that I skipped out on of these 80. Most of these are pulled from my playlist and Steam game page. Obviously, if I missed any, let me know down below. Give me your opinions on some of them or all of them or whatever. But this sits happy with me. I like what I'm looking at. Thank you so much for 10 years, and cheers to another 10 more.